Hi, I'm Arceel, and welcome to my presentation on the Cleric, and moving beyond their stereotype of being a heal bot. So what exactly does a Cleric do? Well, obviously they heal the party from the back row and make sure no one dies, right? Wrong! Incorrect! Well, not necessarily, but the Cleric can be so much more than that. They're a devotee of a certain god, so much, in fact, that the god decided to give them powers. A cleric is defined by the type of god in which they worship. Getting into your cleric abilities. Firstly, we have Divine Order. This is a new addition in the 2024 revision. This allows you to choose between being a Protector Cleric, where you get proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor, or a Thaumaturge Cleric, where you get to learn an additional spell from the Cleric's spell list, and gives you a bonus to your Arcana and Religion checks equal to your Wisdom modifier on top of any proficiency or intelligence bonus you would already have. In the 2014 version of the rule set, these two kind of things would be split between the different subclasses rather than something independent of it. I like this change because it allows you to be more expressive in how you want to portray your cleric. And then one of the most important abilities for the cleric is Channel Divinity. Every domain, every subclass gets its own additional effect that you can do off of using Channel Divinity, but all clerics get Turn Undead. This was also part of 2014, where you can make undead flee in fear. But now you also have Divine Spark, where you can use your Channel Divinity to heal allies, or you can use it as an attack, but heal allies, that's probably what you're going to be using this for. So what are your cleric boons? First and foremost, you have spell casting. Not only that, you have wisdom spell casting, which may be the best version of spell casting in the game. You get to just draw from any spell in your entire spell list, and because you get to change it on every long rest, you get a lot of versatility in what spells you want to have prepared for what situation. Not only that, clerics just have a very wide array of spells that they can prepare. Because of this, they do have very good support options if that's the kind of cleric you want to play. That being said, it doesn't have to be support. There are a lot of ways you can build a cleric to not be support oriented. They have the abilities and tool set to do that. You also have your Divine Intervention. As a cleric, you can just call upon your god for a little favor, because why not? In the current edition, it's a spell. You can choose any cleric spell of 5th level or lower that doesn't require a reaction cast, and they'll cast that for you. Once you get to the Greater Divine Intervention, you can use the feature to also cast Wish if you want. I'm going to be very real. This is worse than the 2014 version of Intervention, in that you could just ask them to cast any spell based on the wording, I believe, but also it doesn't have to be a spell. You can call on them for any sort of favor, and you and your DM get to decide how that plays out, how that resolves. Now your cleric banes. Good luck not playing support. Sure, you have the tools for it, but god, you might end up going back into that niche. Beyond that, preparing spells. This is more of a problem for new players, but having to look through the entire spell list to choose what spells you want, especially if you have the other books, rough. Clerics also somewhat sink or float based on their subclass. The base cleric abilities are all good. They're all very good. You're gonna have a good character no matter what. But we all know about how good the Twilight Domain cleric is. And I've played a Trickery cleric in my time. And let me tell you, it was painful. It wasn't my best character, to say the least. Now we go on to your subclasses. First and foremost, you have your life subclass. This is your medic, this is your healer, you're a heal bot. If you want to play a heal bot, this is the subclass for you. Your Channel Divinity just allows you to heal more people. Moving on to the light cleric next. You're all about radiance and light and fire, especially fire, I believe. A lot of the spells that you get for being a light domain cleric have to do with either light, radiance, or fire. Your Channel Divinity allows you to just create bright, hot, searing light that dispels magical darkness and burns your enemies. It's fire. If you want to play Pyromaniac, this is your guy. Now we have your Knowledge Domain Clerics. They're very into their books and scrolls and studies. Overall, you're kind of a nerd, but that's okay. Nerds are cool. With your Channel Divinity, you're able to get proficiency in a skill or tool that you wouldn't have had previously, which is deceptively innocuous. There are many times where this kind of ability would have been very useful to me in my groups. Sleeper pick for real. Next up, we have the Nature Clerics, not to be confused with Druids. The way I like to differentiate Nature Clerics and Druids is that while Druids are concerned with the balance and natural order of nature, Nature Clerics, they like their ecosystem, they like their nature, their thing, and are there to protect their little region. What I'm trying to say is, they're a tree hugger. But hey, if that's your thing, go for it. The Tempest Cleric channels the wild and violent nature of storms and are essentially doing a Thor cosplay. Your Channel Divinity allows you to do max damage on any attacks that deal either lightning and or thunder damage, while sort of placing you in a little hole with what you can do or what you want to be doing. If you're playing a Tempest Cleric, that is probably what you want to be doing. Trickery Cleric. Not to be confused with rogues. You get a lot of illusory spells from their domain spells. Your Channel Divinity allows you to make an illusory copy of yourself. You basically have a pact with the devil. Onto the War Clerics. This is what I would say the most paladin adjacent cleric subclass. You're very much so a holy templar for your god, that being a god of war. You're there to smash face and end battles. Your Channel Divinity allows you to get a +10 attack bonus on any attack. Next up, Forge Domain Clerics. They're crafters, tinkerers, blacksmiths, artisans. You worship a god of the forge, and you're here to make stuff. If anyone's making these sort of holy artifacts or sacred items of your god, it's probably going to be you. As a Forge Domain Cleric, your Channel Divinity allows you to turn metal into any non-magical item that's made from metal. You can also imbue metallic objects with magic. Next, we got your Order Domain Clerics. You're all about hierarchy and structure, chaos, bad. They remind me a lot of the Azorius from Magic the Gathering. You feel like cleric cops. You get domain spells like command to force people to fall under your structure, your order. Your Channel Divinity allows you to charm others, and you're even allowed to make them drop whatever they're holding. You're essentially detaining them. You're a police officer, and you're here to keep the balance, make sure no one disturbs the peace. Next, we have the Grave Domain Cleric. Not to be confused with a grave robber, you don't do that, you don't desecrate corpses. They're also somewhat about balance. This balance is for life and death. Your Channel Divinity allows you to curse an enemy, and upon doing so, whatever hits them next, that enemy is going to be vulnerable to all of that damage. A lot of the flavoring also deals with them being akin to exorcists. They can find roaming or wandering spirits as one might do in a D&D game, and you're there to put them to rest. Next up, we got your Peace Cleric. Opposite of the War Cleric, you're not into all that kind of stuff. You want wars and conflicts to end. Group hug, guys. A lot of your spells are also healing spells from your domain. You have abilities that bond you and others together, and you get benefits for being close to others in your bond. Your Channel Divinity allows you to have a burst of movement, and hopefully you get next to one of your allies, because if you do, then you can heal them. Real power of friendship type stuff. Now we move on to the infamous one, Twilight Domain Clerics. Not that kind of Twilight, this kind of Twilight. When day turns over to night, rowdiness to calm, and light to darkness. Horrible, horrible things lurk within the shadows, but you're there to act as a light within the darkness. You get dark vision up to 300 feet. And not only that, you can share it with others. Yeah, top tier, best cleric subclass. We move on to your Channel Divinity, where you're able to make a shroud of darkness around you. However, if a friendly creature, including you, ends their turn in that shroud of darkness, that creature is able to either gain an amount of temporary hit points or remove a charm or fear effect from them. It's darkness, but it's a soothing darkness. Okay, this one's a little different. This is the Death Cleric. It's not really meant to be a player subclass. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide as a villainous character option. Obviously, you worship a god of death. You're all about that unlife, that not living stuff. Speaking of, a lot of your domain spells have to do with the Necromancy School of Magic. Also, your Channel Divinity lets you deal extra necrotic damage on melee attacks. These are the type of people where if they were wizards instead, they would probably turn out to be liches. But if I learned anything had the prerequisite of being a wizard, I would pass on it too. So I get it. So that was my presentation on the Cleric. They are so much more than just healers and medics. Of course, if you want to do that, go ahead. It's a valid playstyle. And I think in recent years, especially, a lot more people have come around to seeing them as more than just a heal bot. But we're covering all our bases here, so do something cool with it. Clerics can tell very deep and philosophical stories if you allow them to, or if you want to. Anyways, that's all from me. You can go ahead and share a comment of what your favorite Cleric subclass is, or your favorite Cleric character that you have played or have played with. Anything in particular you've taken from this video, or even if you think I was wrong about something and want to tell me how wrong I am about it. Anything works for me.